So getting people to change, is no simple task, which is why I always question the concept that the key for a good salesperson to move someone was to change their mind. So help me bust this particular myth. If we don't move people by changing their minds, how do we move them to buy or to listen or whatever it is that we are moving them to do?
Yeah, that's a really good insight. I mean, I think many times we overstate the importance of changing people's minds and just understated, just give them an easy way to act. So there's a great study of a food drive at a university where the students were asked to say, tell me the people least likely to donate to a food drive and tell me the students most likely to donate to a food drive. So we got two groups of students, the do-gooders who will contribute food, do any good cause, the other ones who are totally checked out. So we have a group of students, the least likely to donate food and the most likely to donate food. Then the experimenters sent each of these groups, half of each group, a letter. The one letter was a general letter, said, "Dear student, we're having a food drive. We hope you contribute." The second letter was more specific. The second letter said, "Dear Darren, we're having a food drive. It's on such and such a date. We're looking for these kinds of foods, these 7 kinds of foods. We will have receptacles on campus into which you can deposit these foods, and encloses a map where you can find the receptacles, and we'll give you a follow-up phone call." And so we've got students, half the students are not inclined to give food, half the students are more inclined to give food, and half of them get a general letter, half of them get a specific letter. And what happened was quite remarkable. When you send the general letter, the Dear Student letter, to people who aren't inclined to give food, none of them gave food. When you sent the specific letter, the Dear Darren letter, to people inclined to give food, a lot of them gave food, nearly half. But what was more important and really kind of amazing, and I think a huge lesson for any entrepreneur, anybody trying to persuade anybody, was this. When you sent the general letter, Dear Student, to the people most inclined to give food, only 8% contributed. But when you sent the specific letter, Dear Darren, we're having a food drive, here's what we're looking for, here's your map, 25% of the least likely students decided to give food. And so what this showed is, by sending the specific letter, you got 3 times the rate of participation that you got sending the general letter to the people most inclined to do it. The punchline of all of this, it's very clear, I'm glad you raised this. Changing people's minds is often less important than simply giving them an off-ramp to act. If you make it easy for people to act, you don't have to change their minds. And so a lot of times when we explain people's behavior, we overstate their disposition and understate context. And changing the context, making it easy for people to act, giving them that very convenient off-ramp is profoundly, profoundly important. There's so many examples of really profound behavior change, really profoundly successful sales attempts that hinge not on converting people to the cause, but on simply making it easy for them to do something.
I really like that specific idea. So before we close out here, Dan, I'd love if there are a couple of other you think that are bite-sized, tangible ideas that our listeners can take with them when this interview is over and start applying to their non-selling, selling process. Any of your favorite little chunks or ideas that you think are tangible that you can cover here in a short period of time?
Oh, sure thing, yeah. One of them is how you frame a choice. There's some research out of Stanford that suggests the use of what I call the blemish frame. If your offering has a tiny blemish, okay, it's not perfect, you're better off, but it's otherwise very good, you're better off pointing out that blemish than you are not mentioning it at all. Because by focusing people's attention on the small blemish, I got this used car, it's in great shape, but there's a little nick on the passenger door on the front seat. By pointing out that small blemish, they take that blemish and they say, compared to what? Compared to a car that's otherwise great, this is awesome. So, point out small blemishes in your offering. Another great technique is to take a very principled approach I think a very pragmatic approach to selling is basically treat every customer as you would your grandmother, but imagine that your grandmother has 80,000 Twitter followers. I think if people follow that guidance, they're going to be in very good shape.